So my, mandate today is to tell you about the role of neoadjuvant and adjuvant chemotherapy in resectable gastric cancer. So I think, let me just begin the talk here. Can I have the next slide, first slide? So it's the discussion is between neoadjuvant versus adjuvant, and I think this is how the nomenclature is. That type 1, type 2, type 3, depending upon the region of the from the GE junction.
And then could we go to the slide show, please? Could we go to the slide show, please? Better, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, next one. Okay, so these are the curves as you see for gastric cancer, overall survival, surgery alone, and for esophageal adenocarcinoma, overall survival, surgery alone. And if you look at stage 2 and below, so the curves with surgery are around 30% 5-year survival, and so is the case with esophageal adenocarcinoma. So therefore, it remains a huge unmet need to improve upon the overall survival for patients who have been subjected to surgery. So I think it goes without saying, as has been shown by Professor Shaileshri Khande, that optimal surgery in which D2 resection really adds on to these results is mandatory. And whatever we do in terms of adjuvant or neoadjuvant chemotherapy is to bring down the distant metastasis and loco-regional recurrence. So have we achieved something? I think we have. So that is where the point of discussion is. Although I think our effort is there, quite a lot of effort is there, but it doesn't usually translate into a huge benefit. So, you get, 5-10% benefit after giving the chemotherapy. And thus, the radiation people also want to add in here to improve upon the results of surgery and chemotherapy. And thus, the debates begin. So, I think the first issue is, how do we tackle the neoadjuvant chemo, or we do the adjuvant chemo? Well, that is what I was given to, discuss today. Next, please. So the first I'm going to cover the neoadjuvant or perioperative or preoperative chemotherapy for a resectable gastric cancer. Next. Okay, so how is that evolved? Next, please. So I think this is how it has come off now. As you see here, I'll show you slides on MAGIC trial and then followed by the FFCD trial in which a platinum 5-FU was used before the surgery was performed. And then, of course, most lately we have the FLOT4 AIO study. So I'll show you these 3 studies and how we have progressed. Next. So, this is, I think we all know the MAGIC trial from UK, where 3 cycles of ECF were given, then surgery, and then 3 cycles. And you see 74% of patients were like gastric cancer here. They didn't have any metastasis and they were more than stage 2. Next, please. So this is to show you that if you do the chemo and surgery, you are able to do more curative resections, which is what perhaps one of the goal of preoperative therapy is. So as you see, from 8% surgery alone, you go to 16% T1. So you're able to downstage these tumors, and you see here, T2, T3 again from 29 to 36%. And 55 to 44%. So you are able to downstage these tumors by the neoadjuvant chemo, and similarly the N0 also go up from 27 to 31%. So you're able to downstage by using 3 cycles of ECF. Next, please. So this is the other study in which cisplatinum and 5-FU was used. 113 patients or so in each arm before surgery, and then followed by the chemo. And again here you see. You have gastroesophageal junction, 62% or so in each arm. Next, please. So this shows you the overall survival benefit of using cisplatinum 5-FU preoperative and then postoperative. And you see the p-values are, hazard ratio is 0.69 and the p-value is 0.02, indicating that use of preoperative chemo gives you an overall survival advantage by 14%. Next, please. So, that is, of course, you get that advantage. But then these are the issues which you have to understand and you have to remember, which people face when we give preoperative chemotherapy. One is that 10% of these patients are not able to complete pre-op chemo. So that's number one. The second is 50% of these patients are not fit to take post-operative chemo. So, nearly half of the patients are getting post-operative chemo after the surgery has been performed. But in spite of that, you are seeing a benefit in the overall survival, as I showed you in the previous slide. So surgery could be done in most of the patients, 92 to 97%. And as I said, in the MAGIC trial and in the FFCD trial, post-operative chemotherapy was not possible in a large majority of patients. As you see here, 3 cycles or 4 cycles were given only in, say, 40% of the patients. So there's another issue that during the preoperative chemotherapy, approximately 10 to 20% patients will progress, and therefore they will not remain suitable for chemo, for surgery. And therefore, maybe the argument there could be that we are looking at a bad biology of the disease, but then these are the practical issues which we face when we do the preoperative chemo. Next, please. So this is what we have come to now in the last 3 or 4 years, where a 4-drug combination in which docetaxel, leucovorin, oxaliplatinum, and 5-FU are used, and 4 cycles are given before the chemo is before the surgery is performed. And next, please. So this is the patient distribution. As you can see, the GE junction 2-3, Seward type 2-3 or stomach. This is the distribution which was equivalent in the FLOT and the ECF arm. So FLOT was compared with the 3-drug combination, which was considered standard from the MAGIC trial. Next, please. Okay, so these are the surgical outcomes that in the FLOT group, you can see 94% of the patients could undergo surgery, and R0 resection was possible in 84%. So both these figures are better than for patients when they are given ECF combination or ECX combination, which is statistically significant, indicating that this particular combination is superior than as compared to the 3-drug combination. As far as complications, etc., are concerned, not much different. Next, please. So I think these are the pathological outcomes. As you can see, less than T1, again, statistically significant. N0, 41% in the 3-drug and 49% in the FLOT. Again, talking about the superiority of FLOT regimen as compared to the previous accepted norm. Next. So these are all, mind you, resectable patients. And as you can see, the progression-free survival and the overall survival projected ones are, superior in favor of the FLOT arm. Next, please. So irrespective of the all prognostic factors, whether you are dealing with T3, T4, T1, T2, N1 or N plus or N negative, no signal cells or signal cells being there. So you see the curves are better for FLOT. Next. So coming to the side effects, I think there is a toxicity which is associated with FLOT, which I think we all learn to kind of deliver in terms of neutropenia, diarrhea. So all that, is statistically significant, which is more for the 4-drug combination. Next. So that's the price which we have to pay. So this is the treatment tolerability, which is almost similar for both the groups when you cover with the prophylactic filgrastim, etc. Next. So the take-home message for FLOT is that this has become the new gold standard as opposed to the triplet therapy, and therefore the overall survival with FLOT is 45%, and therefore there is still, as I said, you need to have better medication, I guess, or maybe can we add something on to FLOT, which is where the radiation comes in. But then I think we don't have data at this point in time. By adding radiation, can we deliver better? Maybe the next speaker is going to cover on that. Next, please. So that was for the FLOT, which is the standard of care in the neoadjuvant setting. So how has the adjuvant chemotherapy evolved? Next, please. So can we have the next slide? Okay, so I think we can, since we are running short of time, then the next slide, please. So these are some of the old studies where with the use of several drugs, which were like platinum 5-FU toposide, we could get a response rate and the hazard ratio, which wasn't much favoring the chemo arm. Next, please. Next. So I think we can go to the newer things. Next, please. So these are again, as I said, there isn't much difference here. Next, please. So let's go to the newer stuff which has become available. Next. Next. Next, please. Next. Can we have the next slide? Okay, so this is how the adjuvant chemotherapy has evolved, from 2001 and until even now. So what we have is the S1, which is, so these are mostly, Japanese studies. The classic is also a Japanese study, and this is what I'm going to share with you. Next. So, as you see here, people have used 1 year S1, which we unfortunately don't have. And this is the, the distribution of the patients, stage 2 or more, who had D2 resection. So, D2 resection is the minimum, which is what the Japanese, adhere to, which is what, we perhaps, in our country, we have good surgeons, but then a lot of, people perhaps not go into all that depth. So the D2 resection basically comes if you are able to remove, 12 or 15 or more nodes. So as I think Dr. Srikhande was explaining before. Next, please. So this is the curve for S1, as you see here, that 71.7% versus 61% overall survival, or a 5-year survival, which is you see the curves separating in favor of the S1 arm. So this is for stage 2, 84 to 71, stage 3A, 67, 57, or 50, 44 for stage 3B. Next, please. So this is what we are doing in our practice, which is the classic trial in which we're using 6 months of Capox after the surgery has been performed. But the trial, as you see again here, is a D2 resection minimum. And here you see stage 2 and stage 3 equally distributed in both the arms. Next. So again, you see a good separation of curves here. Stage 2, 88 versus 79. And for 3A, 70 versus 63%. And stage 3B, 66% and 45% respectively in favor of the Capox arm. But I think in order for us to use Capox as a standalone adjuvant chemotherapy protocol, as mentioned in the selection criteria, a D2 resection of the stomach is kind of required. Next, please. So I think I'll skip this because we don't have S1, and let's go to the next slide. Next slide. So I think basically I've covered most of the things. So are there any biomarkers to decide for perioperative chemo? Next. So I think I'll just go to the summary slide because these are not practical, but to suffice it to say that patients who risk stratification by using tumor regression, as you can see here, that if your tumor regression is grade 3 or 4 or more, well then you get a better outcome than as compared to patients who do not have the regression in the tumor. Next. The other important is the understanding of the MSI high. Patients who are getting MSI high or having MSI high, they don't tend to get that much benefit from preoperative chemo. So no benefit to perioperative chemo in MSI high gastric cancer. So therefore you can select out, but this is all, hypothesis generating, and more work needs to be done in this direction. Similar data is again seen in MSI high gastric cancer, that there's no benefit from adjuvant chemo. Next, please. Next. So I think this is PDL1 again showing that PDL1 is a prognostic in MSS patients in the trial as a whole, and chemo appears to benefit MSS PDL1 negative patients. Next, please. So I think this is what I said before. Next, I think I can just go to the last few slides to conclude. I think I'll not go into this because we're running short of time. Next, please. Next. Next. So I'll skip these slides in the interest of time and take you to the, so I think now the issue is, can we add radiation to this chemo and improve upon the results? I'll just show you 1 or 2 slides and go to the conclusion part. Next. So can I show the next slide? So, okay, now you see here, so this is neoadjuvant chemotherapy plus surgery, and this is neoadjuvant chemoradiation plus surgery, 221 patients in each arm, and you see the curves are overlapping. So there isn't much difference in patients when we give them radiation. Instead, you actually get more leaks and more complications, 30-day mortality is more. So I think we haven't really, gotten a handle of using chemoradiation, especially when we have a FLOT-like regimen. But I think those are my thoughts, but we can listen to the radiation oncologist in the subsequent talk. Next, please. So I'll just skip. Now they are doing these trials to see if the chemo and radiation can be sequenced, and then you can get a better outcome. So this Top Gear study is pending. I think we will see the results. Next. So this is, I think we can take this as a last slide. So if you look at a patient with locoregional disease who's medically fit, potentially resectable. So if somebody has T1B, you can do an adequate surgery and maybe just follow up the patient. But if T2 or higher, so now you see here, so all the options are there. You can do the surgery followed by adjuvant chemo, or you can do pre-operative or peri-operative chemo, which is category 1 or preferred, and or else you can even do pre-operative chemoradiation as category 2B. So there is no consensus at this point in time for one treatment over the other, and therefore depending upon perhaps whom the patient goes to, either you can go for surgery first followed by adjuvant chemo, or you can go for a peri-operative chemo followed by surgery, and some people can also go for pre-operative chemoradiation. So there isn't a clear answer. So with these words, I think I can close here, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you very much for your attention.